King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Tonight on the Wrestling is Real podcast, we recap Hell in a Cell for 2021. And I'm not going to be one of those podcasters tonight that is going to be bent out of shape as to what we saw. It was a letdown on my part, in my opinion. But I'm going to say this as well. I really had no expectations at all tonight. This pay-per-view, it's an obligation. They have to run a monthly pay-per-view. There's nothing really ready at all for this. This was a lame duck show because they're preparing to give us something when the live shows come back. The Thunderdome right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to stay lame duck. They're not developing anything going forward. Not until they go on the road for Money in the Bank and for SummerSlam. That's it. When you saw Roman Reigns defend against Rey Mysterio, in Hell in a Cell on Friday Night SmackDown, tells you a lot. And it was the right move because it didn't make much of a difference to see Roman throw down on Rey and destroy him on Friday night. It didn't make a difference. It was a good idea to go and put a good match on Friday Night SmackDown to give some ratings boost instead of putting it on the pay-per-view where it would have just been nothing. And I think what they also did was that the Roman Reigns title run doesn't get tarnished by being put on the pay-per-view. I think that's fine. I actually thought maybe they would do something to try to lead up to SummerSlam, but that's my wishful thinking. That maybe Roman Reigns would come out, do a promo at some point during Hell in a Cell, and we would find out that somebody would return to be his next opponent at SummerSlam. Well, that's not going to happen. We don't know what that's going to be, who that's going to be. So that's what they're going to do. It's pretty obvious some part-timers are going to have to come back. So if Edge comes back, if Daniel Bryan comes back, if John Cena is going to be coming back, that's what they're going to deal with. That's what they're going to work off of. And then work on a plan to try to build stars under a new idea of no more cold matches, trying to reverse the staleness of the product. Because the staleness of the product is exactly what this is. When I think of the time when Kevin Sullivan, who was it, Bob Mould, and I forget who else was running WCW doing Nitro and Thunder bookings until Russo and Bischoff came back in 2000. Remember when that happened? That the first part of 2000, you had Kevin Sullivan, Bob Mould, and I forget who else it was that was booking the show. It was a booking committee. It was lame duck. It was generic. And the same people were shown over and over again. That's where we're at now. And a lot of stars that could have been on the show were injured or were just exercising their contracts and just bailing out and not showing up. This is where we are now. This is a lame duck time for WWE. And that's what you have to understand. When you look at what they did, we had glorified Raw and SmackDown matches. Now, the Hell in a Cell matches, that's the extra step. And I understand that when they put one of the women's matches in a Hell in a Cell, that's what replaced Roman Reigns in the Hell in a Cell with Rey Mysterio. So you had two Hell in a Cell matches to sandwich in between the front and the back of the pay-per-view. And was it a pre-show? Natalya beats Mandy Rose. Irrelevant match. Now, we did get some good matches. Bianca Belair and Bayley was a very good Hell in a Cell match. Pretty good. No title changes. Which also tells you how lame duck this is. So Bianca Belair, strong in a win over Bayley. And you find the next opponent for her. Because it's not going to be Bayley. So that was a good start. And then we get to Seth Rollins over Cesaro by pinfall. So they're just playing dancing partners. This and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they're playing dancing partners. They're just working with their fellow Ring of Honor partners. That's it. So in this lame duck session, who do you want to work with, Seth? Oh, I'll work with Claudio. Okay. Oh, yeah, we tagged with each other. We used to wrestle each other. Yeah, let's work with each other. Great. That's why they're working with each other, because there's nothing else better for them to do. So let's just make sure we get some good wrestling matches, guys. Let's, do something. Work with each other. Make a program. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, make a program together. So those matches are filler for the pay-per-view. They're good matches, but mean nothing in the long run. Just wanted to get those two matches and push those aside. The Alexa Bliss, Shayna Baszler match, everything you could have expected. Now Alexa Bliss can do voodoo. It's embarrassing. Alexa Bliss, without the Bray Wyatt character, without the Fiend, she's this demented Harley Quinn type of 9-10-year-old, little girl that's demonic. And this story, to go ahead and, we already know Shayna Baszler deserves better than this. Can we just send her to NXT now? Can we just send her back? This is disheartening. But it is Shayna Baszler getting to do something, even though it's bad. Oh, no tag team matches at all tonight. We didn't have that. It was just really just a thrown together pay-per-view, just for the sake of a pay-per-view. But like I said, this is much like what Against All Odds was last week. Much like what NXT TakeOver in Your House was last week. The B shows, and now maybe WWE will do something different with the B shows going forward, but right now they have become lame duck. We are only paying $5 now for the pay-per-views. So we got what we pay for. We're not getting anything special. The value is what we're getting right now. I hate to say it, I got more value from Against All Odds because of the Kenny Omega Moose match of the other night more than anything else. But that show also had no title changes. What we had tonight wouldn't have been, a couple of years ago, this wouldn't have been a hot shot booked Raw or SmackDown. A standalone that would have drawn an audience. This is just indicative of what the product is. The creative product that we've been hampering around here for months on end, more than ever. It's just intensified the lack of creative and the direction of all these stars right now, and the failure to turn around and get a return on investment on any of these stars they have put to the Performance Center. Which they're not green. They're not brand new to wrestling. We're talking about established veterans here that are coming in that have a number of years of wrestling background. So they're not without any idea of what the ring is like, but they've had to go ahead and change to WWE style. And when they've done that, now they're stuck to a style that's bland, that's generic, and now they're working in lame duck feuds. When we know there are only certain stars that actually matter within what's going on here with the company. Yeah. This is sad. And I do sympathize with some of the podcasters out there that are going to shit on this show like crazy, and they're going to break this whole thing down. Well, why? What for? Why would I even go ahead and take another breath trying to break down and analyze and trying to pick out the positives and negatives on this pay-per-view when I could just give an overall opinion? The show was a lame duck show. Charlotte Flair wins over Rhea Ripley in a DQ. So we can't even get a proper finish on pay-per-view for this Raw Women's title match. And it's because they want to extend out Charlotte and Rhea. The kind of heat that they had during the NXT Championship run
when Charlotte Flair used the Royal Rumble win to go ahead and cash in on an NXT title match. Well, we're not there now. And remember when we had Rhea Ripley involved in Survivor Series? Well, that kind of feeling's gone too. Rhea Ripley has gone now down the line of an Aleister Black, a Ricochet, a Keith Lee. Disappointment. Another in the long line of NXT disappointments. Something about getting on that main roster stage, something about getting on that Raw stage that just turns you cancerous. That, I don't know if it's just the color red that just doesn't work well, or just working on Monday nights and the mindset of people who are there, and thinking about that the main roster, if you're a main roster talent, you're succumbed to sometimes work with the same partner over and over and over on feuds that mean nothing, that are just monotonous and have really no depth nor dimensionality. And then when you're brought up to the main roster, your character's not just tweaked. It's emasculated. The intensity is turned down so low. You are instantly going to be thrown into the jelly that is the purgatory of the mid-card. You are going to lose whatever kind of luster that you had coming out of NXT. It goes away immediately, because anybody coming up from NXT means nothing when they get to the main roster. And it's kind of interesting where NXT doesn't get any kind of recognition, because the audience has been watching Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown for so long. They've always looked at NXT as an inferior brand. Meanwhile, the hardcore fans, the hardcore base of fans that do watch NXT and watch other indie promotions and look at NXT as the indie style darling, which is showing you that WWE does have a promotion that can run like an indie promotion, as good as any indie promotion. As good as MLW, as good as NWA, as good as Ring of Honor, as good as Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Pick another pick another promotion. They do. Better than Evolve. Like, that's just what they do. Across the board. But it's looked at as an indie promotion. NXT is really now the indie promotion for WWE. And that's to placate that crowd. But that doesn't mean there's any kind of bond or any kind of association with the main roster. It is a caste system. It is a tier system. And when you look at who is worthy, there's only a handful. And you had to have been there. Look, there is nobody new right now that could come up to the level or come close to a status. Number one, because there's a ceiling, because there's no way to build another star in this current era like a Stone Cold, Rock, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, etc. The environment is not capable of doing that. The people running the creative system, they are incapable of doing that. That's it. The stars you're going to care about are the ones that have been around for a long time. So Seth Rollins, Cesaro, they're wrestling with each other now because they can't be considered to be put towards the main event. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, working with each other now because they can't be considered in the main event. And that's on the men's side. On the women's side, you do see a little bit of possibilities where some stars are able to go ahead and elevate up more than others, which is why we see Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. That at least has been there. And Bianca Belair, for the credit, has been booked proper. Rhea Ripley has not. And they just don't make much of a difference about it. I can't say much more without just rambling on, ranting away. I can't. Did I want to get in front of the mic and talk about this? No. I kind of hated this. I watched the show. I was entertained. But I know it was a lame duck show. And it was a letdown. And that's what they were going to do. Very predictable, as a matter of fact. Well, take a minute. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. The way that Drew McIntyre had to lose sucks, but the story made sense. And as for Drew McIntyre, can't go after the title again unless Bobby Lashley's champion. So two super strong. Well, right now, all your champions are strong. Your main event champions are all strong with good title reigns. With no chance of anybody being able to beat them. Who do you have set up next for Bianca Belair? Who do you have next set up if and when Rhea Ripley is able to hold on to the belt? And who do you got next set up for Bobby Lashley? Who do you got next set up for Roman Reigns? I have no clue. I could start throwing some part-time names that might be coming back to do something, sure. Even if established part-timers that are totally within the realm of taking down a champion. For what? And then why? Things couldn't get any... The morale right now of the roster, I could imagine, cannot be any lower right now. I personally want to go ahead and make a message direct to Nick Khan and tell him that he needs to go ahead, break the barrier. Whatever kind of force field that is stopping you from putting your hands and getting yourself infiltrated into the creative process, into the day-to-day programming of this product, of WWE. The time is now. Live shows are coming. You have a lot to invest right now. It's time to have a one-on-one talk with Vince McMahon and explain to him, same old is over. You can't just keep going back to the well and doing the same thing over and over again. The company needs to rebuild. And it should not be that hard for this company to rebuild. But that's what they need to do right now. Rebuild the product. Come to grips with some things that WWE style is not working. The booking patterns, the feuds, the heat, who's a babyface and who's a heel. All that has to change. Let's come up with an answer. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. We'll come back middle of the week with another Wrestling is Real podcast. And, you know, I'm fine. But this is all I had to say. Pretty short. I can't say much more. So come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.